So good things that you do in the backswing. I love the amount of hip turn that you have. This part is really good here. Long term, I could maybe see you adding a little bit more bend to the left knee to really create some flex into the ground. That would allow you to utilize the ground a little bit better to really lower this left hip and this left shoulder a little more. But it's tiny details. Overall, the pelvic tilt is pretty good. Shoulder plane's pretty good. There is some level of change to the knee flex. And obviously, there's a really big turn to this hip here. So a lot of good stuff going on. The negatives, and this is really where the steep issues come in and why you slice the ball so much. It has nothing to do with your face angle. It has everything to do with this structure up here that I'm not crazy about. And we see a lot of the same with your driver as well. First issue is that your left arm just gets way too upright in your backswing. So we always talk about this idea of hand depth. Hand depth essentially means how far behind the body are the hands getting in the backswing. You are just very simply somebody who doesn't get the hands nearly back enough. So like at the top of your swing, if I drew a line straight down your hands would almost be like over the toes of your feet, kind of between the arch of your foot and the toe. And where I would like to see this ideally, if you want to get the club swinging a little more from the inside so that you don't have a path issue, these hands would have to be more over the heels of your feet. So if I were to draw two lines out right now, one being where your pattern currently is, and then one being where I would like to see the arm structure long term, I would love to see something more like this, which is obviously a much flatter, deeper pattern, not as upright with the arms, a little bit more across your body. So like this left arm here, I wouldn't want it to go above your shoulder plane. I would want it to go along your shoulder plane. So something into that scenario there. If you did that, just having the hands in that deeper position and flatter would allow you to swing from the inside of the golf ball a lot easier without having to worry about anything else. The other problem I'm seeing has a lot to do with the alignment of the club at the top. Your club point's so laid off when you're at the top of the backswing. The problem is it's really hard to get the club dropping into a shallow position when it's already there at the top of the backswing. As soon as your hands lower, it's always going to want to have a different effect where, if we apply a downward movement to the grip, which is normal when we start to lower the club, your club is just going to want to naturally whip out in front of your body. And so the positioning of the club alignment at the top, obviously combined with the structure of the arms and having them not flat enough, it just creates this big time steepening motion. So you can see here, like based on where the club is at the top of the backswing, and then based on where the club wants to work in transition, you can see it gradually getting into a steeper and steeper and obviously steeper pattern here, right? And so halfway down, we see that the club alignment obviously is very upright. It's too vertical. It's not dropping to the inside. But I just want you to be aware of the fact that this is not a downswing issue. It's not isolated to the downswing. This is just because where you're structuring the variables up at the top of the backswing makes it almost impossible for you to shallow the club without having to like hang back somehow with the upper body. So really all of the issues are around the structure that you're creating at the top. So if we got this arm structure into a flatter position, that would really help you out instead of being so up above the shoulder plane, right? So again, instead of having the hands, kind of over the balls of the feet, the point between the arch and the toe, having the hands be more over the heels of the feet as a reference point. So back here would be really ideal. Now, some golfers have the ability to just turn better to get there, but your hip turn is already quite maximized. So this would have to feel predominantly done by having the left arm more connected to the chest. So instead of having this left arm elevated above the chest, it's going to have to feel like your left arm is pressing back into your pecs so that it gets more across your body. You don't have the opportunity to do it through the hips because the hip turn is already quite large, okay? And then from there, if we felt like this club was a little bit more down the plane line or even as an exaggerated feeling more across the line, that would naturally create a lot more space for this club to then shallow out on its own. Whereas right now, like I said, the club is already so shallow, there's just nowhere to go. As soon as you start to lower the hands, you're going to push down on the grip side of the club. The club head is naturally just going to want to whip out in front of your body. And that's where we see the steepening pattern. And that's where coming down into this ball, the club head drops on the wrong side of the hands. So rather than rerouting this way, it's working the other way. And then it's going to create some form of a compensation at the bottom of the swing. That's really why you're slicing the ball right now and how we're going to go about fixing it, okay?